Welcome to the ServiceNow Star live YouTube channel. Welcome everyone. On today's episode, we'll go ahead and talk about the application, the ServiceNow vulnerability response application, and primarily in today's we're going to cover the vulnerability database. What are the vulnerability database? We'll cover all of that in just a moment. If you are new to our YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe so that you'll get new videos sent to you. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and talk about the application vulnerability response. So in order to go ahead and our main topic for today will be the vulnerability response. So on that vulnerability response, I'm going to take you to, for example, tables here. So if we go to the tables, and under that we have system definition and then tables. Now ServiceNow, it's been since I think in few years started creating those application in a scoped application, and that's gonna really help us to now differentiate what table is and which application scope. So if you get a right sn_vol, it'll give you everything that vulnerability response has. It got 138 tables that come with installing the vulnerability response. And as you can see, these are some of the tables. You have table IO, tenable.io table templates. That's the table here. And there's a wash topic, SNVol wash topic. If you want to do a wash topic, you can also go ahead and add that one. And the other one, wash topic counts, you can go ahead and see that one as well. All right, now remediation effort, SNVol remediation effort. That is also one of the table that is installed as part of the vulnerability response. Now today we're gonna mainly we will talk about the libraries for vulnerability response, but in general these are the 138 tables you can see that are installed. Now the most important thing for our goal is just doing two things, right? What are the tables that are extending from the task table? Any vulnerability table that extend from task table. Now what I would do here, you can see that it is task. Let's go ahead and show matching on that. Now doing so, we'll see we got only two tables that are extend from the task table. We know that this task table is the ServiceNow base table, task and CMDB table. Those two, CMDB_CI table and also the task table, the two are the two base or the parent table for every table that you have. Now it doesn't mean that every table is extending from the task table, but when it comes to the vulnerability application or the vulnerability response application, you can find only two tables that extend from the task table. So these are the remediation task, and this remediation task is called SNVol vulnerability. SNVol vulnerability is one of the table that extend from the task table. And when it comes to the penetration test assessment request, there is SNVol pen test assessment request. So that one is for application vulnerability response. This penetration test is more of for application vulnerability response. But what you see here, the remediation task is the only table that extend for when it comes to the vulnerability response. But when it comes to the application vulnerability response, you will only find the penetration test. All right, sorry guys, we are back. Now, these two are the only tables, but I don't want you to be get confused with application vulnerability and vulnerability response. Vulnerability response is primarily for the CI items. And when it comes to the application vulnerability response, these are for more of your custom application that you built. So for those custom application that you built, there is application vulnerability response, and what you see here is penetration test, which is a pen test. Assessment request is that's the table. Now I'm gonna take you to this remediation task by clicking here. Let's go ahead and open it in a new tab, and once it's loaded, we're gonna go ahead and dive to that one. All right, so SN vulnerability. SN vulnerability is the table that extends from the task table. All right, without any delay, let's go ahead and open the remediation task. And now let's take a look at this remediation task, because it extends from remediation task, which is the SN vulnerability that extends from the task table. And here is the label remediation task, and you can see the application. The application is being vulnerability response. And by the way, there are a number of scope app that vulnerability response has. We will go ahead and take a look at that one as well. And it's telling you that it extended from the task table. And these are the columns. There are 111 columns that are they came from the task table, but not all of the fields. We'll take a look at that one as well. There could be some custom field that are there, but for most part, anything that you got on the task table, you can get it here in the remediation task table as well. All right, if you want to go ahead and add a new field, you can go ahead and add by clicking the new. And now the second important part here is the control. So under control, the prefix is vol, the vol. So in remediation task, you might see vol, right, on the number. So that's the prefix, and the number is in 10,000, which is 5 digit. The number of digits are 7, and the numbering is 10,000. So all right, let's go ahead and take a look at the application access, and here is the best thing. So anyone, accessibility, they can go ahead and read from any application scope. They can read, they can create from any application scope, they can update as well. But if you want to delete, you cannot delete. So this button is not checked, so the cards cannot be deleted. And to do that, you need to be in your exactly in that application scope, or you gotta go ahead and turn this one to on. Alright, allowing access to this table via web service, it is checked by default. That is something we can pay attention as well. Alright, now let's take a look at what the form looks like. So in order to go there, under the related link, feel free to go ahead and click show form, or you can go to the list as well. Now let's go ahead and click the show form, and this is gonna bring the remediation task SN vulnerability. That's the only table that extends from the task table when it comes to the vulnerability response. All right, now this table, when you create a remediation task, you see that the number, so the numbering that we saw it earlier, there's the prefix vol, and also the risk rating by default is 5 none, and the risk score is 0. And the states is open whenever you create a remediation task, in the assignment group and assign to. Those two are the reference field. You can go ahead and tie to that one. Created and updated, those are some of the system field that capture when this created, when it's updated. And you also have the short description, and as well as the vulnerability as well. So the vulnerability, if we go ahead and click this, it's a lookup field. If you go ahead and click that, it will go ahead and bring the library. So those are some of our discussion today. So what it's tying here is the CVE, the Common Vulnerability Enumeration. It's one of the database of the vulnerability that we have on the system. We'll talk a lot about this. It's very important to understand the vulnerability entries. These are they will have their V2 score, the vulnerability score. We'll talk about that in detail as well. And here is the thing now, grouping, right? The grouping part, it can be done manually, or you can do by filter, or you can go ahead and do in a filter group. And there is a note section here, or note tab. It captures whatever notes you have done here, any, for example, the state change or the state change, and all of that can be captured. All right, ladies and gentlemen, in about a few minutes, we're gonna come back and continue this work. Till then, let me go ahead and put you in a brief hold. All right, we are back. All right, so now let me actually take you to the libraries of the vulnerability database. Now to go there, we're just gonna go ahead and write library here. Okay, in the application navigator, write library. So you'll have two libraries here. There's one for the vulnerability response. You got libraries. There's NVD, National Vulnerability Database, and you will also have the Common Weakness Enumeration. This is also another database where you can have the third party database as well. So we got those three, and we're gonna go ahead and open those. And now another important thing here is, let's minimize this here. Let's minimize the vulnerability response. So we need to make sure that we got the actual database, because we have two. One is for, I'm just going to show you here. Let me click here, the Cloud API. And here you can see the application vulnerability response. So when you come to the application vulnerability response, you will have the same library for NVD, Common Weakness Enumeration, and the third party. So don't get confused. We have two applications. We have two vulnerability. One is on application vulnerability response, and the other one is on the configuration item, what we call it, the vulnerability response. That's what is our today's topic, and those are the most common vulnerabilities. So most of the custom app, these custom apps are, you are in control. Those are in-house built app, and primarily those problem. I mean, their vulnerabilities are less likely to happen than vulnerability on the other applications that are commonly used, like the Microsoft or any other application that you have, or configuration item that you have. All right, I think I was muted for the last minute or so. Sorry about that. I'm gonna go ahead and repeat what I have said. So there are two vulnerabilities. One is the application vulnerability response, and the second one is the vulnerability response. And you see we got two libraries, right? There's a library here, NVD, Common Weakness Enumeration, and also the third party. So I do not want you guys to get confused with this library and also with the vulnerability response. So this is our today's topic. Let's go ahead and take a look at the NVD, which is National Vulnerability Database. All right, so with NVD, we'll have an ID, and the ID start with CVE. ID start with CVE. It's called Common Vulnerability Enumeration. It's enumerating the database of, you see right there, National Vulnerability Database Enumeration. and this is nationally accredited, and this is generally came from the NIST. So you got the summary here and the vulnerability score that you have. Got this, the V3, which is the vulnerability score, and also we have the vulnerability score, and then the exploit exists, whether there is an exploit or not. And when this was published first, you see that it is published in 2021. And by the way, this database is updating daily, and here you can see there is a new one in January 5. This is on 2022. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Is a CVE 2021. This is containered, is an open source container. Yep, running on an installation of using a C Linux such as EL8. All right, now let's go ahead and open one of the ID here, the National Vulnerability Database. So when I open this one, you'll see there is an ID that starts with CVE and also the year. And here is the default severity. It is too high, and exploit is none. Is not. Exploit skill level for now is none. You can check that one as well. All right, the summary of this database entry, the date it was published and last modified date is also captured. One important thing to note in this here is that the scoring, right, the vulnerability scoring system, what are we gonna use? There is a V3 severity matrix, and there is a base score 8.8, and there are some other data that captured as well. Confidentiality high, integrity high. See, those are important as well when you tie this vulnerability to a given environment, authorization package environment. So those are really important. Now if I scroll down here, vulnerability reference, you got in 3 reference here. All of them, they came from the GitHub. So now let's go ahead and open this one here, and you will take a look at that. So the source URL, you can have it, and if I click this, it will exactly take me to the GitHub. And the vulnerability is the CVE 2020-10519. Okay, and once it's loaded, we can go ahead and open this. Is the enterprise server 2.227, and this is not the latest patch release of this release. It is high, and high. Remote code execution vulnerability. You can take a look at all the details. So this is where all the vulnerability database, or specifically the common database, the CWE and also the CVE, common vulnerability enumerations, are stored. All right, let's scroll down here. The package have been updated to the less security version. Right now, the CV, that's what we have here. There's a bug fix, how you can be able to fix. So this is a known vulnerability, right? So now there's a fix. How can you fix it? While restoring a large backup exception, logging related to the Redis memory exhaustion could cause the restore to fail due to full disk. Right? All the details are captured here. And here is a change. Here is a known issue. On a freshly set up GitHub enterprise server without any users, an attacker could create the first admin user, which is really bad, right? Creating an admin user is really bad. Right, let me take you back to the common vulnerability enumeration. So this is the common vulnerability enumeration 2021 32745. This is reflected cross-site scripting vulnerability, And this one got the impact level right there, impact assessment, all right, the description and the patch, and it's telling you that in which patch is this vulnerability is there, and if you are in the latest patch, in the latest version of 4.2 or later, they are not affected. So anything before that, they need to take action. So you see these are collaboral online, and again, this is in the GitHub library. You can go ahead and get that one. So that's what the ServiceNow application, the vulnerability response, is pulling this data directly from GitHub, and it will also upload it to the ServiceNow. Whenever that vulnerability is found, that vulnerability, see right there, the CVE 2020, and it will tie that URL and it get all the data and populated for you using that API integration. Great. Now we have to take a look at what the National Vulnerability Database looks like, and now I'm going to take you to the CVE. So CWE is stand with Common Weakness Enumeration. So this is also one of the database, and like I said, these are for in-home custom applications, like here the .NET misconfiguration, use of impersonation. There's an impersonation, and there could be some misconfiguration for .NET, and that's mainly talk about the CVE 520. So if you got that misconfiguration, you are liable to have a vulnerability, so you have to make sure that is fixed, and this the Tenable run in your environment, in your custom application, and find those misconfiguration and bring it for you if there is. So you gotta go ahead and fix those vulnerability. All right, now taking you back to the third party. So this third party vulnerability entries is the table is called SNVul third party entry, and these are the third party entry, and I only have one, but that's also another area where we can have the database entered. So there is a V3 score, V2, the severity and exploit, like this, all of that will be captured for us. Great, so that conclude today's session. So we mainly talk about what are those three libraries, the NVD, CW, and the third party, and as well as we have talked about the ServiceNow vulnerability response application tables. All right, now let's see. You can apply the same principle in vulnerability response, and you can work on some other works as well. All right, thank you everyone for being with us. Hope you got something good out of this video, and until we see each other, have a great day everyone.